Hello out there. I'm the oldest nerd once again with Professor O in his study in Oklahoma. And before we get started, there are a couple of things. I want you to stay with us until the end of the video, if you will, because we're going to be talking about another couple of arcane science fiction TV series from the past. So we both have one ready to roll this time. Secondly, we want to apologize for not having a show last week. It was my problem. I didn't have my microphone plugged in or something similar. And everything that was said in last week's episode was said by Professor O. And it might have been an interesting thing, except that a lot of our conversation was rather one-sided. So
We
we
bounce
scrapped
back and
that.
forth. If
That's
you,
true. We do, and so we scrapped that, and we're starting over again. You're not missing anything because we are talking about the Hunt for Red October this time. Now, we're talking before we get there, though. I'd like to say something about Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. It's coming back today, as a matter of fact, and we'll have a review. I'll drop it sometime midday Thursday. So hoping to have that ready for you when that comes about. So
I can't wait. That
I
is
can't
such a good
either.
series. Oh,
And have you heard about the new movie they're talking about now? That once again they've floated a movie saying that they're going to change their whole idea from doing TV shows to doing movies, and they have, of course, no director, no script, no timetable on it, but they think it'll be probably 2 years from now before it comes out. So I'm very tempted. I'm very tempted to do one of these reviews like the other YouTubers do, and without seeing it, without knowing what it's going to be, I'm going to hate it because they're not going to be in line with Gene Roddenberry's vision for it. They'll not have ever seen any of the other Star Trek shows before. It definitely isn't Star Trek. It's just some other science fiction thing. And I don't like the design of the new bridge. So
we
that's the outline of my review that I'm going to do 2 years before it comes out, and we'll see how that works.
it what's so funny is the Kelvin universe has been around only three movies, but still it's been around long enough that for some people that's canon.
Yeah.
And if you divert from the Kelvin universe, what are you doing? That's sacrilege. Which was so funny because that was what they said about the Kelvin universe.
Yes. That's what they
And
said
I've
about Next
always,
Generation, if you remember. You
oh
know,
yeah,
how are we going to deal with a bald captain and a Klingon on the bridge? How terrible to have a Klingon on the bridge. Nobody would have ever done that. Roddenberry would never have gone for that, which, of course, Roddenberry was there at the time.
right.
Now there is something coming up. They say that Pike prays in the first episode, and that was something that was completely against Roddenberry's whole Bible for the show because he was an atheist. But I would point out that in the first season of TOS, they had a chapel. You remember when in the Romulan
Right.
attack they had the married couple, and he is in. They're in the phaser room, which there was a phaser room at that time, and he dies, and so the young bride goes to the chapel and is praying. So Roddenberry was fully in control in season one there. So
And
shut up,
that
everybody.
episode,
That's
that episode, and every minute of that episode is fantastic. I wouldn't
yeah,
change a thing. It's just, yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
she was good. I saw her in a Mannix episode the other day.
yeah. There you
the,
go.
the bride, but
Okay.
but not Gilligan's Island. If
Yeah, we're not going to forget our Gilligans this time,
we
and
are not.
we'll give you our Gilligan lineup once we get through this. What we have here is 7 actors that are trapped aboard a prop submarine. So that is the Hunt for Red October. And an interesting little thing that we should start out with is that they didn't want Sean Connery for the main part as
Yeah,
Ramius. They wanted
interesting.
Klaus Maria Brandauer. He was originally cast as Captain Rubio, but he broke his leg before filming started, and it was Brandauer that recommended his friend Sir Sean Connery for the role, and the rest is
Interesting.
history. Yeah.
I didn't realize he had recommended him for the
Yes.
role. Yeah, and you know,
They had appeared
that was
together in Never Say Never Again.
that's fascinating. In the non James Bond.
Yeah.
That's that is fascinating. And I was where do we know and I where do we know Klaus Maria? Well, we know him from that movie. Any other films come to mind?
The Russia House in 1990, he was in that. And
Ah,
so was Sean Connery.
right, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so there you get those connections. What a good recommendation by him to get
Yeah.
Sean Connery. And the one thing I do know is that they faxed. I love the technology. 1990, they
Yeah.
faxed one page at a time the entire script to Sean Connery, and he loved it. But he said, "We can't do this. It makes no sense."
Right.
And that's right, because they had left off the first page of the script, which explains this whole thing. The movie would not make sense in the age of perestroika and Gorbachev. It wouldn't make any sense at all.
Right.
But it would make sense harkening back 6 years before to the acts.
1984.
Yeah, yeah.
And which was the year that the book was written.
Right, back in 1984, totally fits. I mean, and that was some of the most dangerous times right before Gorbachev. That was when Reagan, he didn't use the term axis of evil, but I can't remember.
Well, he
Almost
did.
straight out. What's that?
He did. That
He did
wasn't
use
at
the
that
term
time,
axis of
but
evil.
yeah. No, wait a minute. It wasn't
Yeah, I mean,
Reagan. It wasn't Reagan. It was George W. Bush that did that, or one of the George
well,
Bushes.
Bush was in '90
Might have
when
been George
the
H. W.
movie was
Bush.
actually made.
Yeah.
Right,
I
but
don't know. I'm confused now.
his secretary, yeah, well, back in '84 it was Reagan, and when the movie
Yeah.
was set, because you got when the
Yes.
movie was set versus when it's made. So when it's set, it's Reagan, and Reagan was, I mean, it was, well, that was when they made that. We were worried about, people were very worried about a nuclear war in 1984,
Sure.
because Reagan was building up the defense. There was no perestroika, no Gorbachev. The Russian leader was what was his name?
Konstantin
You got it.
Chernenko.
You
Yeah.
were talking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Konstantin
He
Chernenko.
was very intransigent. Yeah, yeah. He was an old bear. They play him in the movie just perfectly, just as the
They do.
kind of the character. He was, yeah, he was ex KGB. There was no detente going on. It was scary. That's when they made that movie. That was right around the time of the movie from another friend of ours that directed Star Trek Two.
Yes.
And I'm and
Nicholas Meyer.
and Nicholas Meyer, and he directed an anti-nuclear war film, but in a sense, it was was it The Last Day? I can't remember but anyway, ABC aired it. They warned people this is a scary film,
Oh yeah.
and this deals with nuclear. Yeah, yeah, it was, and that was the
The
context
day
that
after
this
that
film
was
was
that
made
was the
in.
name of that film.
Straight up, that day at that's exactly right. With Jason Robards, and now it kind of looks tame, but back then it was pretty scary, and that's the context where this film is set in. So once Sean Connery realized, whoa, this is the time we're talking about, and now the Russians have developed what basically could be a first strike nuclear weapon with that submarine that can park those ICBMs with multiple independent, was it MERV, multiple
Yeah. Multiple
independent
entry reentry vehicle.
reentry, right, and with where one rocket, and then the warheads go to different places, and they can park that right by Washington D.C. That made the Cuban Missile Crisis, well, like it's in the film, that makes the
Yes.
Cuban Missile Crisis look like a walk in the park.
Right.
So, but oh man, and Sean Connery's character realizes that, and he, and I what do you think that's his number one reason for defecting? Is the danger that the sub presents,
Yeah, I think he
or
said as much in the film that when they came out with this particular sub, he realized that it was a first strike weapon, and he was not a traitor to his country by any means, but he didn't think that blowing up the entire world was a good idea, and so that's why he defected.
Right. And I love the personal stuff they bring in too
Yeah,
with his wife, where apparently the Soviet system is he felt like that she felt that she became neglected in the
yeah,
Soviet system somehow. And she'd been dead 1 year. And of course his own personal feelings. He said when he um went at sea, he was talking to oh God, Sam Neill, who we
yeah,
just lost. But he was
yeah.
talking to Sam Neill, and he said, when I said to my wife, I'm going at sea 40 years ago, that's really when I left. I never came back. And a life at sea, a life in like perpetual Cold War.
Yeah, they don't really say what caused his wife to die. We would assume that it was some kind of terminal disease that wasn't
Right.
treated well by the system.
Yeah, you can tell there's bitterness there.
Yeah,
Uh, when he's talking to the political officer that he subsequently kills. Uh,
yeah,
well, he slipped on his glass of tea. So yeah,
that's
accidents
right.
happen. I love the way Tim Curry comes up and says, "Don't
It
take
it,
this
it,
on
it
yourself."
echoes the Dirty Dozen, where every time anybody got in a fight and they come all beat up, they say, "What happened?" They say, "It slipped on a bar of soap."
Yep, that would have been funny. They had a borrow soap. But oh, just what a good film. So what about back to casting? Well, Sean Connery, we get Sean Connery, whew, on a really, I bet Klaus Maria Brandauer would have been good, but Sean Connery's perfect. What about because at the time, the Alex, oh good grief, why am I
Alec
losing his
Baldwin. Alec
name?
Baldwin.
Thank you. He is he's kind of an unknown actor. He's been in the oh gosh, here I am searching for. He's just come out of a Tim Burton movie,
He was in
and
Working Girl. He was in Pearl Harbor.
right, what was the Tim
This
Burton
was
movie?
later. This was later, but before that, he had been in Working Girl,
Okay,
and he was
but kind of an unknown.
he had appeared with Harrison Ford in Working Girl and Ben Affleck. I don't know if
Oh, he's been in Knots Landing, the
yeah, TV
kind of
stuff.
kind of
Yeah,
TV soap opera type stuff, and the let's see, the one I'm looking, Glenn Ross, uh, and I was trying, yeah, Working Girl, exactly. Oh, and Beetlejuice. That's the Tim Burton film that he'd
yes,
been in with the, but still not this
he
kind
was
of
not
role
leading man.
at
He wasn't leading
all.
man kind of stuff.
No. So who were they? So obviously they weren't thinking of him as the first. Who were they thinking of
Well,
that they maybe couldn't
They
get?
wanted Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford was not available. They then thought about like Jeff Bridges, Richard Gere, Mel Gibson, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, Christopher
Wow.
Lambert, Stephen Lang, Michael Nouri, Kurt Russell, Bill Paxton, Ron Perlman, Sylvester Stallone, Patrick Swayze, John Travolta, and Bruce Willis.
I can see a few of those, but I can't see Ron Perlman.
No,
I can,
yeah,
but,
there's a bunch of those I can't see
no,
in that
no.
role.
But taking
Perhaps
a
not.
chance on Alec Baldwin was just perfect. And
Yeah,
my only disappointment in this series, and we're like six movies in, and a whole TV series with Jim from The Office. But I just wish Alec Baldwin could have continued this part for maybe a couple of three more films. I mean, he was perfect in the role.
well, they say what happened was that he was. Problem with my clicker. The problem was that he had this big role, and he thought that he could
Oh,
get much more money in the next film, and the offer that he put out. They said, "Well, we could get Harrison Ford for that amount of money," and then they did.
and then
So
they did, yeah.
yeah,
And Patriot Games is a terrific film. I think
yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think Harrison Ford may have done. two in the series. A lot of people did, not as many Felix Leiters. There's more Felix Leiter actors in the Bond series than there are Jack Ryan actors, but it's close. There's
Yeah.
I always love the way Felix is a different character actor every time. But that's fat. That I'm glad that makes sense. Then that's what happened. And if you can get Harrison Ford for just as cheaper, then yeah, you've put yourself out of the ballpark at that point.
That would be kind of a thing that if I were Harrison Ford, I'd be a little resentful that they got me because I was cheaper than Alec Baldwin.
Exactly. And that's prime Harrison Ford. Sean Connery was in his prime too. I'm trying to remember, had he just played in the third Indiana Jones as Indy's father, he might have been coming off that.
He might have been. I don't recall.
Yeah, it's real close proximity. I mean, it's either that was the film he came off of, or that was his next film. It's real close.
I'm checking that now. We'll see. But
that's prime Sean Connery time.
While we're looking for that, and this, I have the world's slowest computer here. But while we're looking for that, I want to point out Richard Jordan, plays Jeffrey Pelt, the National Security Advisor, who has a number of very good scenes. They originally wanted Rip Torn for him, and I could see Rip Torn in that job.
Yeah. But Richard Jordan was great. I think that's really one of the best things I've ever seen him in. He plays that. You've lost another sub. He plays that character, and you can see him not as somebody from the South that is slow. Instead, he's thinking all the time, analyzing all the time. I love his line where you'll come up with it later, but he's a politician, and he's dealt with. I'm used to kissing babies. But he likes to keep his options.
I'm not kissing babies. I'm stealing their lollipops. Yeah,
exactly.
That's kind of a thing. Sean Connery did a number of things after this, of course, and my screen is not resing just yet. But one of the things he did was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and the fact that didn't end his career is a testament to how good his acting is. Because
and of course. He's wearing a hairpiece in this film, which is just amazing. It's the best hairpiece I've ever seen.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
it needs its own credit.
Probably the worst is Chekhov's beetle hairpiece from Star Trek. Now, Chekhov, one of the young Beatles in 1966 or 67, but this hairpiece is perfect. I mean, it's not even, a classic, it doesn't even cover, it just melds in with his hair.
It does have kind of a what you would expect a Russian officer to look like.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything about him is just right. That's, that's just, and right in a subtle sense. It fits in the world, in his world, the sub, what they eat, what they drink, everything just, it's of a piece, and it fits in beautifully. Yeah. You mentioned Richard Jordan, just fantastic. Stellan Skarsgård, who, and he's probably 35, maybe. He plays a young, commanding officer of the Konolov. We see him at the beginning of the film and then at the end of the film, and it's
pretty much. He's terrific. And later on, of course, we see him in the Andor series as the antique shop owner who's the head of the resistance, and played a very good part there. Obviously,
to be honest, that is the first. He's been around. He's one of these character actors. As they age, you realize this guy has got a great career, and then now he's pretty much hitting into. He can carry a movie now, and a series like that, and just but he was good. He was very impactful then. Not as cautious, not as thinking. He's more reactive. Because that's what his part calls for. But he really has a sense of gravitas as as that commander. And James Earl Jones is so good. Uh, Coming off it, he's been in the best baseball movies,
Yeah.
and he just plays the Vice Admiral Greer, who's
Yes.
known and followed Jack Ryan. Kind of, do you gather he's a mentor for Jack Ryan? That must be in the books, maybe.
I figure he must be, but he's the only actor who's played the same part in multiple of these movies. So
That's exactly
I
right.
mean,
He is the constant.
yeah,
He is.
pretty much. By the way, Sean Connery was in The Last Crusade in 1989, the year before this film came out.
So it's the
And
year
then
before.
after this, he was in The Russia House, Highlander 2, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and some lesser known things. But
Bless him. But this
he,
cast, it's loaded. I mean,
yeah,
it is just as loaded as you can get. Scott Glenn can also carry a film, a star. Scott Glenn
he was
as
in
the
Apollo
captain.
13, which did a great job there. And
Oh yeah,
yeah, here he completely envelopes himself in the character. You believe that he's Captain Mancuso.
oh he does. And we're bouncing around like we always do. There's a speaking of his character. There's the one article I could find uh, that was kind of academically based. It was interesting, but this was an article that was really trying to make a point. This article had felt, and we can talk about this. This
Yeah,
article had felt that it was kind of taking Reagan's ideology to task and saying that the Americans were kind of reactionary and in this film, and that they were another point that they were making was that that they felt like they were kind of taking advantage of the Russian system and not respecting the Russians. And I kind of disagreed with them on all counts. I mean, watching our this is a very dangerous sub. Either side could have developed a weapon like this. It just
yes,
was in this film. It's the Russians, and actually, it kind of, in a sense, it gives credit to the Russians. It's yet another scientific advancement that they made. They mentioned Yuri. Sean Connery says, this is like Yuri Gagarin. This is like Sputnik.
yeah,
Another big advance. Only they won't this time. Instead of hearing the thunder of our rockets, they will fear at our silence from the silent Caterpillar drive.
yeah.
But it's a scientific, so it's kind of respecting what the Russians can do, and it's a first strike weapon. And that back in the day, either side could have been developing first strike weapons. So both sides could have been reactionary, but both sides, and I don't think he brings this out in the article very well. Both sides actually had people like Jack Ryan and the captain, like Scott Glenn, as Commander Mancuso. Both sides, those characters are not reactionary. They are analyzing and thinking. Their ideology is not guiding them. What is guiding them is facts, things that they discover, facts on the ground.
It makes me
And
think also of Run Silent, Run Deep. If you remember that film, where you have the American captain and the German U-boat captain who are
right,
matching wits with each other without having actually met each other.
right, exactly. And there's a respect on both sides.
There is, and
Yeah,
there was a comedy routine done at the time that movie came out where the captain says, "I think there's a U-boat out there. I know this because my corns are hurting." Switch to the U-boat captain. Nobody knows we're here unless that's the captain with the corns. And they,
that's a that's great.
yeah.
that is, that
But
could have been a nice.
they were matched very well, and that was the wonderful thing. You don't usually see that in war movies, especially, and here either, where you have captains matching wits with each other and being on kind of a level playing field.
Absolutely. Like I said, this article is saying Scott Glenn, because uh, uh, Sean Connery's character was worried about a cowboy, somebody, that he said,
Yeah,
my biggest fear is that we run into an American sub commander that's a cowboy, and he'll want to fight us instead of realizing I want to defect.
yeah,
And and Scott Glenn is the opposite of a cowboy. I mean, he's not to put down, but it's that kind of reactionary mentality that the article was talking about. He's not that way at all.
Well, Scott
He
Glenn
lives
did say that he had followed both Scott Glenn um, and the
John Connery.
Sean Connery had
Yeah,
both spent time with American ships, so they could
exactly.
see how a captain works. And Scott Glenn said that the captain on the ship that he was on never raised his voice no matter what happened. If there was something that was, alarms going off, things like this, he was just as calm as he was when nothing was happening. And he based his character on that captain, who actually they gave a bit part as the guy that launches the torpedoes when James Earl Jones is leaning over him saying, "I was never here." But his keeping his cool completely was just the essence of that character. And you could see through all the thing, it was just, we have a job to do here. Here's what we do next. Here's what we're going to do next. Here's how we're going to figure this out. Here's how we're going to work it. And it goes back to, working the math in The Martian. You don't get excited about it. You just, you do what you have
That's
to do.
that's right. That's right. And you don't put your ideology does not guide the way.
No.
What you have to do. The mission is guiding the way, and actually in this case, not going to a nuclear war. And the Scott Glenn character is amazing. He listens to Jonesy, who has this crazy idea that he can hear by speeding up this tape 10 times speed, where the computer $40 million worth of software has said looking for geothermal or geological sounds, and Jonesy really, and that was I'll find his name in a second. In a
Yeah.
second, he was terrific. I think Tari,
Yeah,
no,
he's
no,
he's
yeah,
a, he's
Courtney,
a, he's
Courtney
one of those
Vance.
people that's been he's one of those people that's been in 100 different TV shows. You've probably seen him, but has always been pretty much
Yeah,
um, just a character actor, and those people always get work.
yeah. So he speeds
But
up the tape. Yeah, Scott Glenn says, "You're telling me we got $40 million worth of software that says this is something geological, and you think it's a new type of sub that we've never." And Jonesy says, "Yep," and he believes him.
he says, "You
And
sold
then,
me."
wow, watching,
And that is
yeah,
based on
you
an
sold me.
actual
That's
character. That
exactly
is
right.
during World War II. There was an actual um, um, radar guy who was able to. He had an incredible talent in interpreting the radar, and it led to one of the big naval victories during World War II. Just for a guy
Wow,
like that. So Jonesy's not made up. He's based on an actual person.
based on that is awesome. And then, God, the biggest thing of all, when he's anything but a cowboy, he Scott Glenn's character is listening to Alec Baldwin. He's Scott Glenn has orders to fire on the Russian sub. They have just come through. That when the ambassador says our commander is a loose cannon, he's had a he's had a mental breakdown, and what he wants to do is take this new sub and fire nuclear. And so he's been giving orders to fire on this sub. And Alec Baldwin comes up with that is the crazy Ivan at the bottom of the hour, and that little thing is enough to make Scott Glenn give him a chance. Where
even
both
though
subs,
even though it was obvious to the captain that he had lied about knowing which way he was going to turn,
yeah,
and called him on it, and he says, "Well, you got me, but I
you
had a
got me.
shot, had to take a shot." So
That was
there's
yeah.
something to be said about that. I love the perhaps my favorite exchange in the whole picture was where the torpedo is 20 seconds before hitting them. They're now on the submarine with Ramius. And he turns to Ryan and says, "What books?" "Pardon me? What books did you write?"
All
"I
right.
wrote a biography of Admiral Halsey called The Fighting Sailor, Naval Combat Tactics. I know the book." "Torpedo impact. Your conclusions were all wrong, Ryan. 10 seconds." Halsey acted stupidly. Ryan, of course, is on the edge of panic here. 9, 8, 7, 6. And torpedo impact now, and Anyway, he goes on to say, "Oh, it was 10 seconds," and he says Halsey
Yeah,
acted stupidly,
I can just hear him saying
and,
that. Yeah,
and still counting down 9, 8, 7, 6, and then the torpedo impacts and doesn't go off. And the reason that he's having casual conversation there is
yeah.
because he knows what he's doing. Nobody else knows what he's doing, and
Nobody knows.
it's a very funny and suspenseful at the same time exchange.
And think about how many writers would have come up with that idea. Just that the idea that the Russian sub commander, not because it's impressive enough. You're thinking, "Ooh, Alec Baldwin has read, Jack Ryan has read the Russian sub commander's books. That's cool." And the Russian, Ramius could say, "You read my book," but instead he inverted that, where
Yeah,
Ramius has read Jack Ryan's book. And if I'm a writer, I'm thinking, well, this is kind of cool. I like the way I've done this. And then he even criticizes your conclusions are all wrong. But
yeah,
then to set that with a torpedo
yeah.
coming and just
20
running
seconds
into the
away.
torpedo.
What's
Yeah.
funny at
And
the end
it's
of that
because,
exchange, it's Mancuso that explains what happened. Ryan has just
right,
pretty much soiled himself after this all happened, and he turns to Mancuso and he says, "What happened?" And Mancuso says, "Combat tactics. By turning into the torpedo, the captain closed the distance before it could arm itself." So Mancuso knew what he was
exactly.
doing.
Yeah, he completely,
Yeah,
that's let's see, the first torpedo is that the because in that and that's the this I was thinking about the writing. We were talking about the writing of this film.
yeah,
It's so good. Robert McKee is a good book on screenwriting. Writer named Robert McKee, and he's actually even played a bit part in adaptation. He's just or else they talk about his book in adaptation. But it's a good book on screenwriting. One of the best I've ever read. But he, like all good books do on screenwriting, they, where's Act One? How does Act One spin this into Act Two? How does Act Two? And so right at that point, just before then, we'd been spun into Act Three because that's, when that kind of last new part of the film, when things change, and that you could kind of say there's kind of like there's a setup and a payoff. The setup is when they have, like you talked about, the setup is when they put the little boat, Chekhov's gun, the little sub on top of the Red October, and now all of a sudden both crews are going to meet, and that comes with about 30 minutes left in the film where both crews meet each other, and we can tell the whole film is spinning in a new direction because now everybody's together. But the new danger with Act Three is all of a sudden a torpedo comes out of nowhere, and the Russian crew says the Americans are firing on us, because they're all together in the Red October, and the Russian and then Jonesy says, no, the pitch is too high. That's a Russian torpedo. And so that's and it's just so well crafted. That's
I
the
like
beginning
it.
of
I
Act
like
Three,
it
and it's
where
such
he's
a nice.
yeah. I like it where he's training Seaman Beaumont.
Yes,
Try to
yes,
listen to this, and then hear what I'm hearing. And Beaumont says, "Wait a minute." Jones says, "Uh-oh." Says, "Disparage surface clutter." Seaman Jones says, "Yes." He said, "I should go to SAPS." "Correct, Seaman Beaumont. Signal Algorithmic Processing System. Give it a week, and you'll be teaching at Caltech. So, like Beethoven on the computer, you have labored to produce a whale." A marine mammal that knows a hell of a lot more about sonar than you do.
you
Turn her around to 269 and let's try it again.
And that's just good writing.
It is.
Instead of Jonesy having to talk to himself, which sometimes movies will do, that
Yeah, yeah.
instead he's teaching a guy so we can learn about it. And
Right.
then they keep Jonesy's unreal ability to discern sound. They follow it through the entire movie to that last scene where he can detect that no, it's a Russian torpedo, and wow, it's just that film is beautifully crafted. It just uh, well, yeah. One last thing about writing is that McKee points out is that you've got to, in terms of your hero character, is always going to try to restore order in the simplest way possible. Like if our life was, because movies are going to spin your life out of control, and most movies you're just trying to get back to normal. You get that, and of course when we're spun out of control, seems like maybe if you're a Russian seaman is when Ramius not only does he kill the political officer because he's kind of committing them. Now they're committed to a course they have to effect. But he
Yeah.
also writes the premiere and says, "Guess what? We're we're defecting. Good luck in catching us." I mean, that would not be my
Thumbing
plan
his
A for
nose.
getting. Say that again.
Thumbing his nose. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. So the world is spun in a new direction, and so Jack Ryan's just trying to restore order. So he does all these measured things. He keeps saying to himself, "Next time, just write a damn memo. Write a memo. Just write the memo, Jack." But instead, he finds himself at a meeting where he's leading the meeting, and in a helicopter that's a flying gas can, and he's got to drop himself into the sea, and instead of writing the memo, there he is on the. So he does all these measured things, and he thinks they're going to work. Because he's outthinking the Russians. And then all of a sudden, what McKee says, the world spins again in a new direction. This time, the new direction is the Russians come to the Americans and they say, "We need your help destroying our own sub." And that's when it really looks like, you got this giant gap between what Ryan hopes is going to happen and reality.
yeah,
And so he's got to bridge that gap somehow. And that's where he is desperation. But when we're at risk, that's when we really find out who we are. And Jack Ryan's he's got to risk everything. And so does the sub commander at that point. And we find out who they are. They're carefully intelligent, driven, intelligent, smart guys that that will do what needs to be done to keep the world sane. They're not crazy. They're
yes,
good people. And yeah, but oh God, just a well written film. Just in yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
just
yeah, I'm. Let's mention while we're not talking about casting once again, that uh, Gates McFadden is one of only three women that's in this cast. She does all of her lines right before the credits roll at the beginning of the film, and then is never seen again. But interestingly, she plays a
I
doctor.
thought we were going to see her again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this was right after she was fired from Next Generation for that 1 year, where they replaced her with
yeah.
Pulaski. I forget the actor's name.
Diana Muldaur.
Diana Muldaur. Yeah, who had been in the original series,
Right.
and then this, and she'd played like four different characters over the course of two series. Anyway. So Gates McFadden was there, and it was only because they couldn't get Marina Sirtis, which they wanted for the part.
Oh,
And
that's crazy.
she recommended
That's
Gates
amazing.
McFadden because Gates McFadden wasn't working at the time, and so
Needed
that
some
was how
more.
that happened. But that and the
I'm wondering if
daughter
Gates McFadden is thinking
were the
now.
only women that had any lines in the movie, and then there was um, one woman on the Russian side that they used, and she didn't have any lines. She was just there, and the rest of it is all guys, and that kept one possible director from doing it altogether because he didn't want to direct a picture that was all guys.
Oh, a submarine picture set in the '80s. That's all guys. Go figure. That's that's. It's going to be all guys.
Yeah, yeah, that would add a whole
Well,
different problem, wouldn't
John
it?
um, the I bet Gates McFadden was thinking she was gonna. Was she thinking maybe that this would be her new role in
Yes,
subsequent films?
she was thinking that she would be in the next picture. They promised her a bigger role in the next picture, and then she was hired back on Star Trek. Wasn't available when they did the next picture. They recast.
It's when the one character we really uh, we mentioned him a little bit, but Sam Neill is incredible in this
Oh
film.
yeah,
He brings it's such a thinking person's thriller
yeah,
with but Sam Neill brings that kind of emotional quality to it because he wants to go to Montana And
Yeah, but not in the way that you would normally do that. It was kind of a aspiration
right,
rather than uh, it wasn't excitement. It wasn't longing. It was just I have a plan.
you
This
are
is
so right. He's got a plan,
I'm going
and
to
it's
I'm
an
going to marry
aspiration.
a round American woman, and we're going to raise rabbits, and she's going to cook them for me, and then I'm going to
And
get a pickup and drive through all the states. I mean that's a plan if I've ever heard one.
do
And
you have to
Sam
have
Neill pulled it
papers?
off perfectly. I mean, in the Jurassic Park films, he was great. I mean, he was good at everything that he did. He died too
Oh,
soon.
you're right. You're spot on right. This is the one place that's aspirational, and you really need that. And he even tries to bring that up out of Sean Connery. He says, what are you looking for? What are you, instead of just having, it could have, this could have been a good film with him just trying to defect and keep this first strike weapon. But instead, they've got aspirations too. And so he asks about Sean Connery, and Sean Connery, at that point, it's not so much as he doesn't want to say anything that but he misses his wife, and he realized that's where he kind of realizes how the Soviet system has, and not only the system, but just the Cold War and being a sub commander all those
Yeah,
years kept him from having a life and a balanced life. And it's just a beautiful moment. And then something, as in any good movie, something happens. I think at that point, I think another torpedo is being fired on him or something. I can't remember, but it's just and Sam Neill is so good in that role. Just yeah, perfect for that part.
yeah, yeah. And there's so much good acting in this. I mean, this is not your usual action picture. In fact, there's not a whole lot of action in it when you stop and think about it. It's all suspense. It's all what's going to happen, not really what's happened, because they
I,
only fire two torpedoes during the whole thing, and then the rest of it is just building up the pieces of the puzzle, the reactor failure, the how they're going to get the crew off the sub, and a wonderful part where Jack Ryan realizes that he doesn't have to figure out how they're going to get off the sub. Ramius will figure it out.
right, that is just brilliant. That is just that's a wonderful epiphany, and it's asking you to be thinking along with Jack Ryan because it's when it hits him, you've got to put all those pieces together too, and it just works. Um,
It says
the,
something about the genius of Tom Clancy. He's written a lot of books. He obviously has done a lot of research, and even for the film, they had some things that were so accurate they had to be careful. The construction, they used actual Navy ships and subs in this picture, and there's some things they accidentally gave up a military secret for how their sonar works, and did not intend to do that. Didn't know it was a secret, and they didn't catch it until after the film came out. So that was that SAR system that they
and
had.
that's
SAPS.
the Navy was so ready to work. So many times you'll have a film that sometimes the military can't work with because the film may be anti-military or something
Yeah.
like that. But this film was just everybody's
It didn't help.
presented
It
as a
didn't hurt that this was Ronald Reagan's favorite film.
right, and
I
and
mean,
and and the Navy is ready after Top Gun, and the recruitment in Navy jets after Top Gun. They're looking, well, hey, can we increase our recruitment? And so when they come to this idea with submariners and how can we make that look cool? This film's perfect for that. And
they
so
actually put recruitment posters in front of theaters that when this film opened.
that's amazing.
They
And,
really
and
thought
it
it
is,
was going to do what Top Gun did.
yeah, yeah. It's such and it's such a thinking person's film. It's not, and again, it's not promoting uh the idiot. If there's I'm sure there's an ideology in some respects there, but it's also just keep your options open, keep thinking. It's going to take thinking people to get us into to basically every day make it to the next day. It's going to take thoughtfulness and care and care for each other. The character, it's teamwork. It just, there's so many really neat things that come out in the film. One thing, that and again, I'm going to need your help here. The term, because we do have a saboteur, and the word saboteur comes from Dutch. Um,
Yes, sabotage basically is saboteur is from sabotage. Sabotage comes from a Dutch revolt against a uh, industrial revolution in which they
ah
threw their wooden shoes, which were called sabots, into the
ah
machinery to cause the machinery to stop working, and that became sabotage.
as we learned in Star Trek Six, when the character
Yeah,
of
yeah. Obviously, I got that from another movie, but you know,
hey, but you explained it so well. I mean,
yeah.
you sound just like it's a
Valeris,
Valeris in
explained that
Star
to
Trek
me.
Six, and I gotta put,
It's
since we have a
interesting how well
saboteur.
Vulcans know you world history.
Oh, but Kirk knew. It always amazed me. He could drive a car from the 30s with just a little, get the standard engine and new revolvers, and
Yeah, he
yeah,
just didn't know how to drive a shift.
and drive a ship. Right, had trouble with that. They learned faster than I did. Of course, if you got Chicago gangsters, going after you, that you might learn fast.
The thing that got me on that picture was how quickly that even Kirk goes into the movie accent,
Yes.
doing
Well, my brother-in-law, Catano,
doing Cagney. I mean,
I he can identify anybody and he loves conspiracy films, spy films, what am I? Bank robbery, heist films. Whenever there's somebody dirty but portraying themselves as clean, but Catano can identify him so fast. And I brought him to Star Trek Six. And I thought, oh, this is cool. Star Trek plus a conspiracy, kind of a heist film, Star Trek Six. And he looked at me 20 minutes in the film. He'd been watching Valeris, and he says, she's dirty. And I'm thinking, and it's way before we know that she's that she's part of the
yeah.
conspiracy to kill Gorkon, the Russian ambassador. But he knew it. Now, the only film that ever stumped him was an incredible Kevin Costner film called No Way Out. And that film can stump anybody. You don't know who's dirty. I'm not going to say who it is, but you don't know till the end. But yeah, Sabot. We got a saboteur. One thing we talked about last time, Professor B, was the fact that when we get this saboteur, we know he sabotaged the Caterpillar drive. We know it was made to look like it just failed, but it's actually been sabotaged early in the film when
Right.
when the Russian
And that was
silent
done by
drive stopped.
Ramius himself. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's that we were talking about who did it. Well, the guy firing the guns at the end is the cook. It's the cook's assistant. And last time we talked about this, we were thinking, where did we see the cook's assistant? Because you've always got to see Chekhov's gun. Where did we see? This is a little different, but still, you need to see
Oh,
the
yeah.
saboteur early on. When we see him, this is my sixth watch of the film, and I finally got it. Although the watches have been years apart, it's when Ramius kills the political officer. When Sean Connery kills the political officer, and they zip up his dead body, and they need a witness on I'm taking the political officer's nuclear code key, and I need a witness. And he calls over this cook.
Yeah.
That's the saboteur. And that cook may have been, because they also speculated, do we have KGB on the ship? Do we have any KGB officers? And the political officer says, I'd be the last to know. But it could be that he was also a KGB officer, but he's the cook's assistant. I think that's the saboteur. I think it's the same guy that witnesses. And of course, what Ramius is doing is highly unusual. Two people are supposed to have the nuclear codes, and he's taking them. Yeah, yeah. But I think that, and then
there's
next time
two levels of sabotage. The cook does one of them, but
Yeah.
it's Ramius himself that disables the Caterpillar drive because he wants to get caught.
Yeah, and then and then has to go with non-silent running.
Right.
And yeah, and then they get it fixed. But oh God, what a just and one character you mentioned, Professor B, last time was Tim Curry. We hadn't talked about him. I mean, the cast is unreal.
Yeah.
Tim Curry, was yeah, did a great job. He's so not like he plays. He's great at expanding. You always think of Tim Curry from the Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Right.
but he's played. But this is very different than the Rocky Horror Picture
Yes,
Show.
yes. Well, he's played a lot of. He's someone else who is kind of a well-known character actor. Let's put him that way. He's not one of these people that you don't know his name, but and has been in everything. But he's been in a whole lot of things. And unfortunately, he was not used to his best in this film because it just didn't call for it in the role. But it's interesting to see him there. He did what he could with what he had.
He
But
did. He really
yeah,
did. Yeah. He's kind of playing a Russian doctor, playing by the rules, and yet empathetic to Ramius. And then there's Peter Firth, who apparently has done some work with the BBC in audio material, but I'm not that familiar with that actor. Peter Firth was a character actor in the he's played on BBC One on a program called Spooks, uh, but it was also titled MI5. But are you familiar with that or?
I'm not, but I've heard Peter Firth being bounced around in a lot of British produced stuff. He's done a lot of
Ah,
television.
right,
Nevertheless,
right.
we need to decide our Gilligan score for this picture, and in my opinion, it doesn't need a Gilligan at all. It needs actually three skippers for
The Three Skippers. Yeah.
three skippers to give good credit to Ramius, to Mancuso, and to James Earl Jones, which was an admiral. So I don't know.
The
We
Three
could make
Skippers.
it.
I love that. I love the only other thing I was going to quick say was I did see after having looked at the models they used and they made gigantic submodels and for the twins of what was it when they go down to it was named Thor's twins.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
yeah that the subs apparently that was filmed in just with a room full of smoke and they're 100-foot long models. I mean the models were
right. The
gigantic.
models couldn't go underwater or ruin them, and it was only finished on one side. So anytime that they showed the other side, they would basically just reverse the film so that they could do. And I mean, they do that on a lot of props. I mean, going back to our Star Trek examples in the TV series, the Enterprise was not finished on one side because that's
Wow,
where
I
that's
did
where all
not
the
know.
mounting clamps. I saw it in the Smithsonian and it had a clamp on one side that was holding it up, and it's not even painted on one side. It's all you. That's
That's
why it was always flying in the same direction.
that's amazing. That
Yeah,
is with the so yeah models and then for the one of the scenes very near the end is when the Russians are evacuating when the sailors think that they've had a nuclear reaction leak. It's the way a nuclear reactor leak. It's the way that they were able to motivate the crew to evacuate. So the sub has now surfaced and that this wasn't a model. This is just they used like three barges and built a deck on top of the three barges,
yes,
a deck to look like the hunter. And that practical deck is amazing. It's
yeah.
gigantic. Sailors are all over the place on it. The American ship is coming in, and apparently they filmed that in a river, or it might have been in cooperation with the Navy on that. I'm not sure
There's a
where they
Navy
filmed that.
training. There's a Navy training ground on the East Coast somewhere that they did. I think it's in Vermont, and they, if I'm not mistaken, and they did most of the shooting of actual ships there.
Right, I do know they had to get enough waves. They had not only did they have a frigate in the background, an American frigate, but they also had out of frame boats that were going around this practical set of the Red October to make
Yeah,
waves because it's in the middle of the Atlantic. They got to have waves, and the boat was also pouring smoke onto the barges, and it sails. I mean, it looks like they're in
yeah,
the middle of the
yeah.
ocean. Yeah, absolutely. But the music's good too. Basil Pesadoris does a great job with that. I love the
Yes,
Russian singing. It brings a sense of pride that the Russians have in
yes.
themselves too.
Let them sing, and yeah,
Yes, Let that
And once again,
let
Jonesy gets that. I'm not certain what I'm hearing. It sounds like people singing.
and I'm with you on the three captains, not three Gilligans, but three captains, because that captain let them sing, and it was terrific.
That goes back to the comedy album I was talking about, where the sonar operator says, "What's that sound?" The captain says, "Oh, that's a German U-boat captain slapping his first officer."
Is that now? That's not in Run Silent, Run Deep,
It is
Professor
not. It
B.
is not.
That
It's a spoof of it, and I don't
that
know.
is
I don't remember. I don't remember what the record is anymore. It belonged to a friend of mine, and hadn't heard it in
there was
years.
that's a yeah. Oh, this
Anyway,
no slapping in this film. The professionalism
no,
on both sides is just
it was really a professional job from the filmmaking aspect and from the depiction of all the characters. I think
oh
it is a it's one of these films that we have seen just over and over. My wife and I, she usually gets tired of something that's been seen more than once, but this is one that we will go back to.
oh
Mostly to Sean Connery's performance, but just everybody did so well in this.
yeah yeah.
Maybe I'll give it an extra skip, or add a Mr. Howell to this, because it's really quite a good picture, and we need to talk about our
Oh,
television picks.
this is true. This is true. I did not. Mine, ironically, even with some extra time, I found that it is not streaming. But The Invaders and I love looking at these series. Ran for 2 years, more like a year and a half on ABC, about 1966. Starred Alec Roy Thines. I'm not sure how to. Good actor. He
Yeah,
later appeared on The X Files because Chris Carter from The X Files loved this show. Not only did Chris Carter loved Kolchak, and so you always think of what inspired the X Files was Kolchak the Night Stalker, but actually, as much as anything, it was The Invaders. And The Invaders is a Quinn Martin production. I love the narration at the beginning. It talks about how this Roy Thane's character is determined, hunted. You know, he's the only one. Like some of these science fiction films that we've talked about, like It Came from Outer Space. He's the only one that has seen this the flying saucer, or the saucers, the aliens. They're able to cover it up, so he sounds like he's crazy. The aliens have manipulated. They can look like us.
yeah,
One of their little finger is kind of stiff. Actually, that's kind of happening to me as I age. My fingers.
yeah. It happens. I have to admit. But it was very much like The Fugitive, except that The Fugitive was
Yes,
running away from being accused of killing somebody, and this guy is just trying to tell everybody they're aliens here, and everybody thinks he's a nut.
but
So,
the aliens also have enough with their ability to look like us. They're able to be able to cause him to be hunted down, so that if he's hunted down, nobody can discover the alien conspiracy. But it also, this kind of inspired V. It even connects. X Files even connects. They were talking about to the Quatermass series from Britain. Um,
yeah,
uh, Chris Carter wanted Nigel Neal from Quatermass to write some X Files episodes, but he couldn't do it. And then Chris Carter, the other connection is just Chris Carter just loved this show. It had some great actors. That's the last thing I found out in this show and in The Invaders. Because Roy Fiennes is a terrific actor,
yeah.
and I meant to have this, but just noticing their cast,
But
and it's
this
very
is something that
serious.
you saw in Quinn Martin Productions, where you would have actually only one regular cast member, and then everything else was played by extras or guest stars.
That's a great point. That's an excellent point. That was yeah. Yeah. Susan Strasberg, Anne Francis, Arthur Hill, some really good actors. A very serious show. I am looking forward to being able to see it when it becomes available. You can buy DVDs on Amazon, or elsewhere, but it is not streaming right now. But what a fun show from the '60s, really, and watching it live. I mean, it was always that was as scary as I wanted to
It
get
was,
when I
yeah.
was. 8 years
And
old.
of course, the thing about it was that even if they managed to kill one of the invaders, they would just turn red and disappear. And
Right.
so there was no evidence of anything. So they couldn't go and put them on a table and open them up and find out that they had 6 kidneys or whatever their
Yeah, Scully
physiological
could have been
difference
his
might be.
partner and still not believed.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, yeah, that was the thing in the X Files, and my biggest problem with the X Files is after Mulder and Scully had been together for years, she still didn't believe anything after having seen
I
half of it
agree.
herself, after being
Yeah.
impregnated by an alien. There's still some it don't fit in science. So
There were some episodes where they still wanted to have her not believed because they wanted that tension. And by that point, it was just stupid. She'd seen too much. Yeah. And been impregnated. Yeah. it,
yeah.
it took them a long time to finally come around. And after they did, it was a better show.
Then after David Duchovny left, they replaced him with the Terminator guy and
Yes.
now the RoboCop guy, and
Right.
then he didn't believe anything, and suddenly she believed everything, and so that kind of tore it for me.
They did
My
yeah.
yeah. My favorite from years past, when I was very young, I used to have to sit through a 30-minute Western with Walter Brennan to wait for this to come out. The Guns of Will Sonnet. It was a half hour about a grandfather played by Walter Brennan who takes his grandson on the trail looking for his father, who is accused of being a gunslinger who may or may not actually be. And they spend a whole lot of time just with Walter Brennan giving his wise old witticisms to his grandson. So no brag, just fact. Anyway, but after waiting through all of that, the Time Tunnel came on. This was an Irwin Allen picture. This only lasted one season. It had 30 episodes, though. It was a big season. And it was Irwin Allen's favorite show of all the things that he has done. And he'd done many things. He, of course, did Lost in Space, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Later on in movies, The Towering Inferno, Airplane. I mean, all of these things were Irwin Allen. And it only lasted one season, not because it wasn't making good ratings. It was on ABC, so anything that showed up in the ratings was worthy of holding on to. But the
On
network,
ABC.
the network wanted the budget cut, and so he said like 25%. He said, "I'm not going with a budget cut. I'll just take it off." And he did the same with Lost in Space. Their threats to reduce the budget caused him just to stop the show, not let them have an ending. And he had planned in the next season, interestingly, that Tony and Doug, the time travelers, would actually be brought back to the present, and then they can go in the tunnel and go correct history like they did in Voyagers and things like that later.
Mm.
But it never made a second season. But James Darren, who was trying to get away from his public image as being just a singer, wanted to show himself with acting chops, and he did. He plays Dr. Tony Newman. Robert Colbert, who later was in soap operas. He was up until recent years on Young and the Restless or something like that.
Whoa.
And was on Dancing with the Stars, I believe. But he was Dr. Doug Phillips. He was the head of the TikTok project. It had been going on for about 10 years, and the year is 1968, 2 years after the present time of the series. And this top secret thing where they were developing this, they spent $7 billion building the time tunnel and the complex, and they had matte shots of big generators and hallways with people running across them and things like this. Supposedly 12,000 people worked there. The actual show had, of course, James Darren and Robert Colbert, who go into the tunnel and get lost and they can't come back. And so they jump from one time to another, kind of like in Quantum Leap. They can't get home.
Yes.
Whit Bissell plays the head of the complex after Doug Phillips gets lost in time as Lieutenant General Haywood Kirk. Then John Zaremba, another character actor you've seen in everything. He always played a scientist or a doctor or something like that. He was Dr. Raymond Swain, who was in the Control Center along with Lee Merriweather as Dr. Ann McGregor, and they
Ah,
talk to each other. And another one who was Sergeant Jiggs, my favorite character, played by a character actor by the name of Wesley Lau. He was always the person, if there was something really nasty that needed to be done, they called Jiggs in. Let's test the tunnel out on Jiggs. And one time it ages him to 100 years old, and they have to put him back in there and put him right back the way he was. But anyway, a nice cast. It won an award for art direction and an Emmy for that.
wow.
Nominated for another, and the time travelers never actually get home. But the way they did it was that it was originally intended as a movie, and Irwin Allen spent a great deal of money putting together the complex using the computers that were used in Lost in Space and
Ah,
Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and which were actual decommissioned military computers they'd have over the other
whoa.
side of the thing.
Yeah.
And then they had this tunnel, which I don't know how big it really was. Part of it was a mat at the end of it, but the rest was actual huge studio. And it cost so much money to make, and then they scrubbed the idea of filming it. And so
Ah,
he redid it for a TV show and said, we can do it on a budget because the set is already built, and we'll use stock footage from everything else for historical things. We'll only need like 2 other people in costume other than Tony and Doug, and we can do it all on sound stages. And that's pretty much it. And so it was done very cheaply. So when the network wanted to cut it by 25%, it was already cut to the bone, and he
right.
just wouldn't do it after that. But it was a very good show where each time they go into the past, sometimes in the future, where everybody wears silver suits with a V in the front, but which is an old Seinfeld joke. He said that I'd like to live in the future where everybody wears a silver suit with a V in the front, and then you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about what you're going to wear that day. But anyway, yeah, that kind of thing. So the mostly it's in the past, and so you have stock footage of the Titanic going down, and from A Night to Remember, I think, which was all of these things were produced by 20th Century Fox, which was the studio they did this from, and so with archival film with very small sets and basically 4 or 5 main people. You cut back from them back in time, and then the general and Swain and McGregor, in the control room, and then that was it. And so it was they were able to. They weren't ever able to change history, but they would go
That's
back and
what my
try their
question was.
best.
That
Yeah,
would they so they were trying to, because you mentioned if they'd had a second season, they could have gone back and reset some of the changes that so they were they changing history when they
no,
went to their no.
hardly ever. Small little details and things like that, but that was about it. Mostly, the first episode, they go back and they're on the Titanic, and they try to tell the captain of the Titanic that the ship's going to hit an iceberg, and that he puts them in the brig, and
Ah,
so there's no brig, but I mean he puts them under restraint. They manage to break free just as the ship goes down, and as they jump into the water, they're transferred and into the
into
next
another
time
spot.
zone. So
Did they have an episode where they had a young German art student? Adolf, your work is really good. Stick with this.
apparently they didn't have any stock footage of Adolf at home, so they didn't do that.
Painting
But
anything. Yeah.
they went
Don't
to
give it up. Your
they,
dream.
they went to Krakatoa. They went to basically anything that had a disaster where you have outside shots of things
Oh
blowing
yeah.
up, and so but most of the plot was around Tony and Doug trying to convince whoever was there that they needed to change their mind on this, or else we know how history's going to turn out, and
Right.
they were never believed, and eventually were transferred again, but they were never brought home.
That's where
And
Quantum Leap, I'm sure Quantum Leap is
yeah,
completely inspired. You can tell it's inspired
oh yeah,
by time tunnel. But that's where they got it. They did such a good job. They made the story so small instead of big stories, it was just small stories where they could do repair little small things, family relationships in time, relationships about being able to about race and gender, where they were correcting things that prejudice that needed to be corrected, little things, and that way it wouldn't affect the gigantic things because what about the ripples in time if the Titanic does not sink? What else is going to happen? You got to get
Yeah,
into,
yeah. But
but
yeah, it did spin off things like Voyagers and Quantum Leap, and in both of those, in Voyagers they had to reset history where it had gone wrong, and they point out later in the season that there was actually a renegade time traveler who was going messing up history, and so
messing
their
up
job
history.
was to go to try to set it back as they were. And the conceit on that, of course, was that the time traveler was completely inept and lost his book on his history book, so he didn't know how to set anything right, and ends up being teamed up with this little boy whose parents were history professors, and therefore he knows what the history are, so he plays the book, and the two of them go from place to place. It was an interesting show. It didn't last long,
But a
and
good
then of
show.
course Quantum Leap. They got and of course the time machine was a stopwatch. You just click the stopwatch and they went somewhere.
Right,
And they did essentially the same thing with Quantum Leap, where they never really showed the lab,
right,
and
right.
they had a remote control made out of Legos, and that was pretty much what they
Al's
had for
remote.
that.
Yeah, that's,
And that was
the
kind of a buddy show because they had of course
true.
you know
Al, the mentor. Yeah,
yeah,
with Scott
Al was
Bakula,
from the present, and Scott Bakula was the time traveler, and he would actually
unstuck in time.
he would in fact in go into other people's bodies somehow,
Right.
and then
That was
everybody,
another
yeah,
thing. That not only was
yeah.
everything didn't involve some giant pivotal piece of
Yeah,
history, but he would go into bodies too. One thing,
yeah.
one little
He taught he taught um, oh, what was it, Buddy Holly, how to write Peggy Sue. That was one of the things.
he did do that. You mentioned Lee Merriweather. I forgot she was in the Time Tunnel cast, and she really was a good actor.
Yeah, she was
The
in some Star Trek. She was in a Star Trek episode
Yeah,
where
that
she
Star Trek.
plays a computer generated alien, and she was Barnaby Jones' assistant for a time,
That's
and
true. Got stuck there.
she was in a number of things. I don't recall now where I first
She
saw
was.
her.
But she was, and I can vaguely remember from the time tunnel. But with that Star Trek episode, she really brings a lot of empathy to that character. It could have been a stupid episode. It was season three. You never know what you were going to get in season three. But her acting in that episode really was good. And Whit Basell, I always love. Anything, I don't, for some
It's
reason, I
true.
just enjoy whatever he's in. One movie that we covered a while back, I mean, like 9 months ago, was Soylent Green, and that's the
Yeah,
one time I've ever seen Whit Basell play. He's always playing somebody in the bureaucracy, like a general, but in this case, he was like a part of like a mayor in New York and one of their or a mayor's assistant or a governor, but he was bad, and you never see
yeah.
him play anybody bad. But I'm sure he was not bad in the time tunnel. He was just trying to do his job.
No, he was um, the administrator, kind of like no, not even that. He was just there.
Yeah, Whit Basell can
It
kind of
was
give you
just
that too.
he was
Yeah,
just the voice of authority by saying, "Oh, what does that mean?" and go to the scientist. It gave all of the tech speak, so that worked. Oh well. I don't see anything where it shows any big parts for Lee Werner. She was in Leave It to Beaver.
wow.
She goes way back there, and then she was in oh gosh, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, Route 66, Jack Benny, The Man from Uncle, Dr. Kildare, Hazel, F Troop, My Three Sons. She was just another one of those character actors, I guess, that
Yeah.
bounces around. But somehow I seem to have heard of her before before the
And
Star Trek episode, but
there's some TV ideas in there for shows for us too.
maybe the time tunnel, because she was in the time tunnel before she was in Star Trek.
Right,
So,
right.
because that was 2 years before, so that could have
Ah,
been it.
could have been
So
what got her.
I think we have beat this horse to death. So you are not going to be here next week. We have you have other things you need to be doing next week. So we're going to take a week off on purpose this time, and then we will be back on the, what is it? I don't know what day it is.
I think we're into early August at some point. There,
Yeah.
yeah.
My calendar is a little too far from me to see what I can reach over. Hang on. I have in this high tech world that we live in. Calendars. We'll be back on the 5th.
Yeah, mine.
And we
Right.
did we decide what we were going to do
Right,
on the 5th?
exactly right.
What were we going to do on the 5th? I remember us talking about it.
Oh,
wrote it down
the
and then
new
lost
film that is now streaming.
Oh, that's
Project.
right. That's right. We're going to do Project
Yes.
Hail Mary. So, yeah, I'm
That's
looking
exactly
forward
right.
to talking about that, and we'll see how many Gilligans we give that.
There's
So-
got to be a connection somewhere. A
I'm
true
certain there.
actor
Well, I mean,
connection.
we
Six
have
Degrees of Gilligan.
we do have someone who is cast away, and woke up and found himself
That's true.
stranded and not liable to get home, kind of thing. So, yeah, there's something we can work with there. So, thank you for
We
joining
can work
us.
with that.
Yeah. Thank you for
Oh,
joining
my
us.
pleasure.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time, Professor. And for the rest of you out there, thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Oh, by the way, later this week, I do have tomorrow, as a matter of fact, I'll have a video dropping on Strange New Worlds, the season 4 opener. So I hope you'll tune in for that. So till then, thank you very much, and don't go far.